let's talk about gold. In most tabletop RPGs, it kind of does one of two things. It's either just a number on your character sheet that keeps ticking up, or it's a shopping list for your next magic item. But think about it. The campaign moments you really remember years down the line, it's almost never about buying that +1 sword, is it? No, it's about the time your gold actually changed the world around you. And that's really the big split, isn't it? On one hand, you've got your standard character sheet gold. Yeah, the numbers go up, the gear gets better, it feels good for a minute. But then you've got world-changing gold. This is the stuff that funds rebellions, the stuff that builds entire cities from scratch. This is how you turn simple treasure into stories that your table will never forget. So let's get right to the heart of it. What's the core problem with the way most games handle gold? Well, there's a kind of hidden ceiling on how much your players can care, and it's baked right into the system. In so many games, gold is just part of this progression loop. You earn it, you spend it, and you get stronger. And look, we've all been on this treadmill, right? And it feels good. Getting mechanical rewards is a core part of why we play these games. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. And when you're on that loop, your character's power absolutely scales up. You hit harder, you can take bigger hits, you face down bigger, scarier monsters. It's a very clear path forward. But there's a really crucial piece missing from this whole equation. And here's the kicker. Your emotional investment, it usually doesn't scale with it. Sure, that new shiny piece of gear makes you better in a fight, but it almost never creates a lasting story. And that is why so many campaigns hit a wall, where the players are swimming in gold, but they're weirdly unmotivated. Because once survival is basically a given, the gold stops meaning anything, unless it can start to change the world. And that brings us to the big shift. We need to start thinking about gold as, well, as narrative leverage. It's about moving away from just optimizing a character sheet and moving towards having real, tangible influence over the world itself. When that shift happens, gold suddenly becomes this incredibly powerful new tool. It's a way to solve problems without having to draw your sword every time. It's a way to literally reshape the world map. And maybe most importantly, it becomes a direct reflection of what your players and their characters actually care about. So the fundamental question your players are asking themselves completely changes. They stop asking, okay, what can I buy to be stronger? And they start asking, what can we change? That one little question, that is the gateway to real long-term engagement. Because players don't just want to succeed, they want to leave a mark. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like at your table on a Friday night? Let's dive into some real, concrete examples. We can pretty much break down these kinds of world-changing expenses into 3 main pillars of impact: infrastructure, social power, and player identity. Let's take a look at each one. All right, first up, infrastructure. This is when players put their money into things that are going to last, things that persist in the world. Maybe they rebuild a town that got torched by a dragon, or they open up a guild hall that becomes their home base. From now on, every single time they go back to that place, it carries this real emotional weight. It's a physical reminder of what they accomplished. Next is social power. This is where gold buys you influence, not better stats. Maybe the party starts sponsoring a political faction they believe in, trying to get an ally on the throne. Or maybe they fund a massive, dangerous expedition to a continent no one's ever mapped. This creates all these ripple effects that the party can't totally control, and that unpredictability, it's an absolute goldmine for drama and new adventures. And finally, player identity. This is when the party invests in something that truly defines who they are as a group. We're talking a customized base of operations, a ship to go exploring, a sanctuary for all the refugees they've saved along the way, or even founding their very own school or order of knights. Now their gold isn't just being spent, it's being used to express their unique story. So we've seen the what and the how, but let's dig into the why. Why is this approach so darn effective with players? What's going on in their heads? This right here is the whole key. If you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Deep down, players care way more about the legacy they leave behind than they do about pure combat efficiency. This is the big aha moment that explains why world-changing gold is so motivating. I mean, think about it this way. Mechanical upgrades, they answer a really short-term question. How do I win the next fight? But world impact, that answers a much bigger, much more compelling question. What will people remember us for? And that second question taps into a kind of motivation that can fuel an entire campaign, long after the thrill of a new magic sword has worn off. Okay, so for all you dungeon masters and game masters watching, this part's for you. How do you actually start introducing these kinds of opportunities into your game without having to, completely tear down and rebuild your world's economy? The trick is to introduce opportunities, not expectations. You don't have to force anything on them. You plant seeds. Maybe there's a struggling little town that desperately needs funding to rebuild its defenses before the goblins come back. Or an NPC offers them a partnership in a new business venture. Just present a problem where a big bag of gold could solve it way faster and way cleaner than a fight. Trust me, once your players realize their gold has this kind of power, they'll start inventing their own amazing goals.
So, when we boil it all down, what's the one big takeaway? What is the true power of gold in our games?
It's this right here. The most powerful use of gold is when it moves from being a simple transaction to becoming a world transformation. It's about shifting the whole purpose of wealth from just acquiring stuff to actually creating change. Think about the stories your players tell after a session. You want to shift that conversation from, hey, what did we buy, to, hey, what exists now because of us? That's when you know you've got a truly invested and engaged party. Look, if you want your players to stay invested long after the excitement of new loot fades away, give them chances to spend their gold in ways that actually reshape their world. Because the numbers on a character sheet, they fade. But the impact they have on the world, that lasts forever. And now I really want to hear from you. What's the most memorable, the most awesome, the most world-changing way that gold was used in a campaign that you either played in or that you ran? Drop your stories in the comments below. Seriously, I read every single one. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into campaign design and player psychology, make sure you subscribe because we've got a lot more explainers just like this one coming your way. Thanks for watching!